Welcome to Lighten the Legal Career Path. I'm your host, Erica Moore-Burton. Whether you're a new attorney looking for inspiration or guidance, or further along in your career, wondering how to get to the next level, or someone that's just simply curious about the legal world, you're in the right place. We'll be talking to female and BIPOC attorneys not only about their remarkable stories of success, but the challenges they've faced along the way, the lessons they've learned, and their valuable insights about their career and the road ahead.
Temitayo Peters.
Welcome to the show, Ope. Really happy to have you here today, and I'm excited for this episode because we're going to be talking about risk taking in the context of your career, personally, professionally, so we can impart on our listeners just some tips and tricks about the importance of risk taking, number one, right? And then secondly, how to take risks appropriately. So before we get into that, I want to talk to you a little bit about your career. Give us an overview. You've had a really successful career to date, and tell our listeners a bit about your role and your journey to becoming one of the youngest appointed partners over at your firm as well. Really want to hear about that.
Oh, that's a lot.
It is.
So I think I've had kind of an unorthodox career thus far. I very strangely went to law school with no intention of ever practicing. I wanted to be a human rights attorney, and so I spent both of my law school summers working in East Africa for foreign governments, and then upon
Wow.
graduation, I started working for NGOs and nonprofits doing various work in human rights and humanitarian law. So I spent 4 years after I graduated working on issues from access to justice to anti-corruption to securing the rights of internally displaced persons during wartime. And so it was really varied. It was really exciting. I loved it, but it wasn't financially sustainable. And so after 4 years, I had to make the really difficult decision to try to transition into a regular law firm practice. And I wasn't sure if I would be able to make that shift. And it was really, really hard. But I was really lucky while I was doing my search, I was able to connect with someone who's a current partner at my firm. And she told me about this practice of law I'd never heard about. She called it public law. And I was like, what is that? And so when she explained it, I got really excited because public law is essentially exactly what I was doing in the international world, but on a local scale. So in public law, you represent local governments and sometimes state governments. And so that was really, really great. And unfortunately, her firm, my current firm, didn't have any openings at that time. But I took what I learned and looked for other public law jobs and was lucky to land one. And then after an opening opened up at my current firm, I made the switch, and I've been here ever since.
Great. That is quite an unconventional background as well. Tell me about sort of how you feel now in hindsight, looking back on that decision that you made working with foreign governments, because that's quite exciting, especially leaving law school and jumping into that kind of work and then transitioning. How do you feel about the decision that you made then now?
I have no regrets. I had a lot of really great opportunities to work with some really, really impressive people and on really novel issues. And I think it was a really important step for me to take early on in my career because it was very risky. That field is really saturated with a lot of people who are idealists like me, who want to change
Right.
the world. And so it's really, really hard to get into. So I had to learn to be scrappy really early on and fight for what I wanted. And when I got a position I liked, I had to learn how to make myself invaluable so that I could keep it. And that's something I've carried on into my practice today.
And that's great that you had that international experience so early as well. Tell us a little bit about where did you go, where were you stationed?
So during law school, I spent one summer in Rwanda and a second
Hmm.
summer in Uganda.
Wonderful. How are your experiences there? And what advice would you give to anyone now at any stage of their career wanting to sort of dive into that type of work in the African space is becoming sort of very popular, should I say, right now. So what would your advice be for anyone wanting to sort of get into that space now? And sorry, another part of the question. Early versus late as well in the career.
I think there's probably a lot more opportunities to try it out early on in your career
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot of internships available. Of course, they're going to be competitive, but I think I would encourage anyone who's interested in this field to cast a really wide net and to look for opportunities on topics that they might not necessarily be interested in. So, for example, like the thing that makes my heart really beat really fast is anti-corruption and just um, humanitarian law. Those are like the two
Mm-hmm.
topics that I love. But if I had found an opportunity to work in, for example, like agriculture or other healthcare, I would have taken that opportunity. Because at the end of the day, what matters is that you get that experience, that foreign experience. You can always shift into a field that you like later down the line after you've had that
Great.
experience.
Great. What surprised you the most about working in both of those different countries as well?
I think I was surprised at how open the people I worked with were willing to listen to my opinion.
Mm.
I was so young at that
Yeah.
time. That was over a decade ago. And I didn't really feel like I had a lot to give. But I think that I didn't go there with a Western viewpoint and try to impose a Western viewpoint upon the countries and the situations I was working in. I instead
Mm-hmm.
spent a lot of time listening and trying to build relationships with my colleagues and
Mm-hmm.
trying to understand the challenges and goals that they had within their system. And then I used that to craft the advice that I was providing. And I think that is what helped me become an asset and someone that they were willing to listen to.
Great. And would you say that of both countries, of both Rwanda and Uganda as well?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. How has that experience? How did that experience provide a good foundation for you? So once you finished that work, that portion, that chapter, and then you jumped into private practice, very very different. How did that foundation sort of help you with public law now and your practice today?
Yeah, so it's interesting. In any type of government work, you're having to negotiate the different wants and needs of various stakeholders. So just because you're
Mm-hmm.
working for one entity doesn't mean everyone is going to agree all the time, right? And so I learned early on working for foreign governments how to balance the needs of those governments and advocacy agencies who are trying to get the ear of government and also just civilians. And I do
Mm-hmm.
the same in my current practice. I represent counties primarily in civil rights litigation, which is very controversial. And so
Right.
I'm spending a lot of my time talking to my clients who might be anywhere from sheriff's officers to mental health providers to county council.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm also having to work with plaintiffs counsel and then advocates in the community, board members. It's
Mm-hmm.
a lot. And so I think my early experience learning how to balance all of the competing interests has really helped me hone and shape my career now.
Great, great. What has been your biggest success, would you say? I mean, you made partner pretty early. Oh, I wouldn't say early. You made partner when you were supposed to make partner, right? But what can you sort of tell us about the steps that led to that as well, led to that appointment, and the biggest success that you've seen either as partner or before?
It took a lot of work. I jumped in headfirst into a field that I was semi-familiar with because of my international practice, but I had not
Mm-hmm.
done any sort of public law classes or anything during law school. And so my first couple years were really difficult. I had a lot of all-nighters, worked through
Mm-hmm.
a lot of weekends, and put in just a tremendous amount of hours. But I think that I'm really lucky that I work with people who recognize all the hard work I did. And
Right.
so after a couple years, I was able to present myself as an expert in my field.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what led me to the promotion to partner.
Got it. So you saying the work was the really the learning curve to learn about this particular area.
Yeah, and just the willingness to put in the hard work because I think there is I'm all for work life balance, but it's
Mm-hmm.
hard, right? Early on in your career, sometimes you have to make a choice, and so
Right.
early on in my career, I decided I'm going to choose to prioritize work, and hopefully it won't last too long. And I was lucky
Right.
to pick it up, and I can have more of a balance, but it was a sacrifice in the beginning.
Right. Do you find it, just going off on a tangent a little bit, you just hit on something about the work life balance? Because I don't, early in my career, I don't remember such a concept as work life balance. It was just all work. I mean, I worked from 7 a.m. till 9, 10 at night, and that just was the schedule. It's interesting being in the recruitment world now and speaking to more junior attorneys and them sort of wanting that work life balance, and it's sort of a different time now. Have you found that in working with younger lawyers, and do you have any thoughts about it?
Yeah, it's hard. I always tell people like you have to decide what your priorities are.
Right.
And unfortunately, I just don't see a way around putting in the time that it takes to elevate. And so
Right.
I always tell associates who ask me how I got to where I am today that
Mm-hmm.
there's no shortcut. Like
Right.
you're a genius, and there are some people like that, but most of us aren't geniuses. You're just going to have to work, and you're going to have to sacrifice your weekends and your evenings sometimes to make turn that B motion into an A, so that you impress the partner you're working with and then the judge, and you get a win.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard. It's a hard thing to do, but I think that's the only way to do it. And then if you don't want to advance quickly, then I think it's fine. You can get a work-life balance, but you have to understand that it's a trade-off. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You have to make
Right.
a choice and then stick with it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I've sort of, the way that I counsel people now, I say you can have it all, but not at the same time, right?
Precisely.
So you can
Mhm.
you can at the beginning you work hard, and so you work hard so you can at some point later on in your career you can have that balance. But if you
Precisely.
want to, wherever you want to get to, if you want to get to that place faster, then you gotta put the work in and you gotta put the time in. So definitely agree with you there. This show is sponsored by Round Hill Legal Search. For the past 10 years, Round Hill Search has been placing attorneys of all levels with our trusted clients, from AmLaw 100 firms to the solo practitioner. Visit us at roundhillsearch.com for more information, to find great legal talent, or to step into your next legal role. So, talk with me a little bit about some challenges you've had along the way. I mean, obviously, you've had an unconventional path. What have been some of the challenges that you've had to face, generally, and then drilling down on some of the challenges that you've had to face as a woman and a woman of color as well?
Yeah, so making that shift from human rights to my current practice was really hard. I
Mm-hmm.
remember when I was deciding whether or not I wanted to go into human rights, that every attorney I talked to told me that once you do it, like you're done, like you're
Right.
never going to be able to practice, because as soon as you're 1 or 2 years out of law school, why would anyone hire you without any experience, right? And so that was a major challenge that I had to face, and there were times where I didn't think I would be able to successfully make the move,
Mm-hmm.
but I kept persevering, and ultimately it ended up working out. But it was hard. But now
And
in
when
my
you say hard, hard in once you landed, or hard in even finding the opportunities at that point?
finding the opportunities,
Got it.
it was
Okay.
difficult.
And how did you find the opportunities?
I had to move. I was in Southern California at the time and just not finding any opportunities. And my best friend encouraged me to fly up to the Bay Area where she was living at that time to just get a little change of scenery and to try out the legal market up there. And so I remember
Great.
flying up with absolutely no intention of moving because I like Southern California. But I landed what I thought was going to be a practice interview
Right.
while I was up there, and the joke was on me because that job at the end I got an offer on the spot, and that ended up being my first job.
Wow. Wow. So I've got more questions because that sort of ties into our theme today of risk taking. So you pretty much took a risk from moving from SoCal to NorCal, took an informational, and then landed a role.
I
That's how
actually
it happened.
I got the job on just a trip. Like it was just a visit. I hadn't even made the
Wow.
move. Yeah, it was just I'm here. Why might as well like try to interview. I did, got the job, and was given a week to move. So it was
Wow.
wild, but it all worked out.
Okay, great. So let's put a pin in that because I want to hear more about that in a bit. But going back to your challenges as well. So opportunities, you said that was one, just a general one.
Yeah, that was challenging. And then when I first started beginning practicing, I was faced with a number of very contentious opposing counsel
Mm-hmm.
who were just unpleasant, I would say. A lot
Okay.
of yelling and emergency motions and discovery that forced me to pull all those all-nighters that I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really challenging because I felt like I wasn't getting any respect. Anytime I
Mm.
would be on the call with them, they would just talk over me or ask to speak to my supervisor. And then even in depositions or in court, I'm constantly looked over and asked if I'm a paralegal or a secretary,
Wow.
simply because I look young and because I'm a woman. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm one of those people who I try not to be the source of another person's bad day because you just never
Right.
know what someone is going through. So
Right.
I try my hardest to just try to be kind and understanding to other people, and it's worked out in a lot of those circumstances. I wouldn't say I became friends with my opposing counsel.
Right.
We developed a level of mutual respect, which made the process a lot easier and led to a lot less hand wringing in the end.
Great. Okay. And then specifically as a woman of color as well.
I find that I'm constantly having to claim and reclaim my seat at the table.
Mm-hmm.
I think people
Okay.
are always trying to push me out
Mm-hmm.
because I'm young, I'm black, and I'm a woman, and I'm pretty calm.
Yeah.
But
You do
I,
have a nice disposition. You do have a very calm disposition, which I need to take a few notes there, but
I always say I'm calm to a point. And so
okay.
I am not someone who will ever not say something if I see someone doing something wrong. So
Right.
I will claim my seat. I will stay there. And if I see someone doing something that I think is unkind to me, I'll call them out on it. And I
Right.
think that's been helpful.
Got it. Okay. So there's been a certain amount of resilience, you would say, in when it comes to claiming your seat, or when people are trying to displace you from the table.
Yes.
Got it. Where does that come from? Where does that resilience come from within you?
Definitely from my parents, I would say. They taught me really early on that I had a right. I could do anything I wanted. Sorry, let me try that again. They taught me early on that I could be anything that I want to be as
Right.
long as I work hard for it. And
Got
so
it.
I've taken that, and that's been my mantra.
Got it. Got it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about risk taking. So, going back to that moment that you decided to make a move to San Francisco, what informed your decision making then? Because it was a risk. Obviously, you were looking for new opportunities, but that's kind of it's not a huge move, but it's still a big move from SoCal to NorCal to take on a role. Tell us a little bit about that risk in particular, and then other risks that you've sort of taken on your journey, and how you've made that decision to take a risk?
It's funny. I feel like most of my risks have been moves. Uh,
Okay.
so with the San Francisco move, I remember leaving the job interview and being overwhelmed because I knew that it was a job that could potentially, it was a foot in the door into a
Mm-hmm.
career that I thought I would like, but I wasn't sure how I could make that happen. So I went back to my friend's house and I made a pros and cons list. I'm a big proponent of pros and cons lists,
Mm-hmm.
particularly written ones. So I literally folded a piece of paper in half, wrote pros on one side, cons on the other, and I wrote everything out.
Love
And
it.
I find generally just that simple act of writing and
Mm-hmm.
organizing my thoughts helps me make a decision. And so I remember leaving that and deciding, okay, if I can find an apartment and if I can get my parents to help me move, I think I can make this happen. And I was
Great.
lucky. I found an apartment the next day, called my
Wow.
parents, and they were available to help me move. And within a week, I was up in the Bay starting my new job.
Wow, that's great. Don't you find that sometimes, well, I was thinking about this before we hopped on today about risks and risks that I've taken. Um, and I don't know if you find this as well, but it's sort of like you make a decision to do something, and then the universe sort of conspires to have everything sort of fall into place for you. Do you find that? Have you found that when you've sort of made that decision, once you've made the decision, like it's a risk at first, I'm going to make an assessment, and then I'm going to move forward, and then
Yes, I was saying earlier that I feel like a lot of my risks have to do with moves. I did
mm-hmm.
something similar during COVID. I decided I was done with the Bay, and so I just up and decided to drive cross country
Oh,
to try to
great.
figure out where I wanted to live next. And
Uh,
I spent 9 months doing it. Didn't tell my boss. Didn't tell my job.
wow.
It'll work out in the
Yeah.
end. And I'm lucky that it did. I landed in DC and then I told my company, like, I moved, sorry. And they said, oh, that's fine. Like,
Right.
you can work remotely from there. And I was like, great. But I didn't know at the time if that was going to work out or if I was going to end up in a new city with no job.
If you're enjoying today's conversation, please share with another attorney in your network and send us your questions to podcast@roundhillsearch.com. Amazing. That's great. So you're in DC right now then.
Yes,
And how do you like it out there?
I love it.
Great, great, great. So I think that it's as the older we get, it can go one of two ways. You have people that are obviously risk takers and then risk adverse, right? I think I'm one of those on the risk taker sides, but I know that that doesn't come naturally to some people. So, what are some tips that you might have for people that are weighing their options or considering risks within their careers, whether it's leaving a role and going to do some human rights work in Africa? What are some tips that you have for those moments?
I say two things. First, be kind to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's a time for everything. And if you're really struggling and you're just feeling unsettled, perhaps now is not your time to take risks. And
Hmm.
that's okay. But I think the important thing is to be content with where you are and to not lose the opportunity to learn and grow in your current space so that when you are ready to make that risk and that jump, that you can do it.
Right. Right. Okay. Have you ever taken a risk that didn't go your way? The results didn't go your way. I was writing a list beforehand, and I was thinking about all the risks that I'd taken, and I was like, okay, not all of these risks panned out, but something emerged from those risks that I took that went awry. You know, on a personal note, I took a risk in coming to California, even for a relationship that just went horribly wrong. But then, 6 months later, I met my husband. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, if I hadn't taken that risk, I wouldn't have met him. But I also think about it as it relates to career. Sometimes you do take a risk, and sometimes it does go horribly wrong. At that point of it going wrong, like what can one do, and how do you handle that?
I'm trying to rack my brains and think about a personal example.
I'd,
I can't think of any like career examples, but like in my personal life, there's definitely been some times where I've had circumstances that felt like failure.
mm-hmm.
But I think what I've learned, with the benefit of hindsight and decades of life experience now, is that just because something feels like a failure in the moment doesn't mean
Right.
it ultimately is going to be one. There's always the benefit of hindsight, and sometimes you'll be surprised. You'll turn around and look back and realize that what you thought was a failure was actually a stepping stone. And that,
Absolutely, absolutely. And I always reference COVID when you talk about sort of things that the silver linings. Like I believe there's a silver lining in every single thing, career wise or other or personally. That there's always a lesson to be learned. There's always something that emerges from a failure, a risk that you've taken and it's gone awry. So it's looking for it as well, because oftentimes we're not looking enough for the silver linings as well. So can we've talked about confidence, we talked about resilience. How do you, as far in as you are into your career now, how do you how do you stay resilient? How have you been able to stay resilient? Because I'm sure you have your challenges still, even 10 years in, it doesn't go away, right? The challenges don't go away. So how have you been able to maintain that over the years?
I'm a huge proponent of self care.
Okay.
I spend I have this whole self care routine. So I have
Let's hear
like,
it.
yeah, so one week I'll do like my nails, and another week I'll get my hair done, and another week I'll get a facial. And then I travel a lot. So that's really what keeps me sane. And I exercise
Excellent.
consistently.
Every
Yeah,
day?
every day. Yes, I make sure I get outside, even if it's just a walk around the block. I think fresh air and some good old sunshine is really great for your mental health and essential.
Great. And there has been a lot of talk recently about you know, mental health, and I think that we're in the legal industry, the legal profession, where I think we're more affected by those issues more than other professions as well. So that
Mhm.
self-care piece is really important, and I think going back to what we were saying about really working earlier in your career, you got to work, but then you do have to carve out that time for self care. So, have you always carved out the time for self care? Or is that something you've had to sort of learn and be deliberate, intentional about?
I didn't have the money in the beginning,
Okay,
but no, actually, I think I did. I've always exercised, so that's something
okay.
that I've always done because that's something you don't need money
You don't
for.
need money for exercise,
Yeah.
right?
And then I remember early on in my career, I would treat myself on Fridays to like a meal out. So I'd be really
Nice.
good during the week, and then on Friday, like that was my night to either meet someone out or to order something in. And so I think I've had that from the beginning. It's a bit of practice I've continued and carried with
Got it.
me.
So self care, self care. What a piece of advice would you give to somebody that is really afraid, really afraid to take a risk, that wants to play it safe?
I would say give yourself time to live in that fear,
Mm-hmm.
but give yourself a deadline and then
Mm.
go for it. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? As I mentioned earlier, I don't really think there's any such thing as failure. There's
Right.
just opportunities. And so, even if your fears end up being true and it doesn't pan out as you wanted it to, ultimately you're going to learn something from it. And so, why not do it?
Right. So weigh the pros and cons. Sit in the fear for a little bit and feel it, I guess, and
Mm-hmm.
then either make a decision, but put a deadline, put a date on it, or a deadline on it.
Yes, absolutely.
How do you make sure you're going to stick to that deadline?
I'll usually tell someone. So I have
Ah,
my best
that's
friend
good.
who's great. She holds me accountable. So I'll tell her I'm thinking about something and I want to do it by this date. And she'll be like, all right. And so that date comes around and she's harassing me. And I think that's really great.
That's great. That's great. So telling somebody something that I've done recently, I don't like it, but I'm going to share it as well. So I have an accountability partner, and it's again everybody's just moving forward with their lives and their goals, but we have a weekly meeting and we have a goal that we're trying to reach. So we have the task, but we've got a dollar amount attached to it. So if I don't do what I said I was supposed to do by the certain date, I have to pay $100.
Oh,
So yes, and
I like that a lot.
and I've had to pay $100 as well on a couple of occasions when I haven't done it. And so that really forces me to do it the next time, right? And if you
Mhm.
don't do it, it doubles. So exactly. And I hate it, but I love it. And the reason
I'm gonna
being,
steal that. I love it.
yeah, absolutely. Please do. But the reason being because it really it forces you out of your comfort zone because the things that you put on that list, I mean, they've gone from, writing something, publishing something, or just doing things that are a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit risky, but I know I need to do it. And I don't like parting with my money. So I make sure I make sure that I actually do it. On the occasion that I haven't, it's really hurt. So I love what you said about telling somebody, and that takes it a little bit further with the dollar amount attached to it.
Yeah, I like that. I guess it's finding the thing that'll hurt the most. So maybe if
Yeah,
you hate exercising, you have to run a mile or something like
exactly,
that.
exactly.
Yeah. Love
Attach
it.
an exercise to it. That's great. Um, So right now, I'm sure just looking at your background, obviously, you're a person that is still growing, still developing. As it relates to continuous learning and education, can you talk to us a little bit about any risks that you've taken specifically related to that? I saw that you went back and did your MDR at Pepperdine. Was it at Pepperdine?
Yes,
Pepperdine,
that's
yes, you
correct.
did. What prompted you doing that? And were there any risks associated with even going back to do that? Why did you do it as well?
I was bored.
Oh, you bought, okay. Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
I wanted a challenge, and I was like, this might be a good challenge. Yeah, I've always really liked dispute resolution.
Hmm.
I remember I did a mediation clinic during law school, and the judge was intense. She literally threw us to the wolves the first day and
Hmm.
just sent us out to mediate these small claims cases. And my first one was a neighbor dispute that was really, really contentious.
Uh-huh.
And so I was shuttling back and forth between these two people who like wouldn't even look at each other, like in a
Oh, wow.
hallway. And then I finally figured out that there was actually something personal going on there. And so
Oh.
I, at the end, like we were all hugging and we are taking photos, but it was really challenging and really scary, right? Because I didn't know
Mm.
what I was doing. I was like a first year law student and I was asked to mediate a real dispute, but um, gosh, I'm so sorry. I don't remember where I was going with
So
that.
you were telling me about the reason why you went back to do the
Oh yes,
MDR, yeah.
yeah. So I've always remembered that experience, and that's kind of made dispute resolution something that's given me a lot of joy. And so during COVID, I was super busy with work, but
Hmm.
I figured that I had the time. Not figured. I decided that it would be a good time to go back because everything was online, and
Yeah.
so I took a risk, hoping that I'd be able to balance. It was hard. Many, many all nighters. Again, I thought I'd been over them at that point
Right.
in my career, but they returned. But it worked out, and I got the MDR, and I'm really happy that I went back and finished.
Wonderful. Now, are you how has it enhanced your practice now, even obtaining that at this stage in your career as well?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have always done a lot of mediations and settlement conferences in my practice,
Mm-hmm.
but after finishing that MDR, I only had a few classes left. I'd done most of it when I was in law school, but I've noticed that my ability to achieve what I think are more fair and just settlements for not only my clients but the other people involved has been really enhanced. And
Hmm.
I've had a couple sorry, I've had a couple situations where I've been asked by judges to kind of facilitate informal discussions amongst parties on the side before we go back to them. And those have been really great. And I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from that. So it was a really good decision, and I'm glad I took it.
That's great. That's great. And it's good, again, risk taken as it relates to continuous learning and education as well. What, flipping over to another subject, when we talk about risk taking, especially as it relates to where we are and where we've evolved to with AI and where we're going as well, as it relates to sort of technology in the legal field. What are some of the risks and the opportunities that you see with the integration of AI and technology in law as well?
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to my brother last week about AI because I've been so anti-AI.
Yeah.
And he
Oh,
told
really?
me,
You're an anti-AI person.
I've
Okay.
been anti-AI, but he told me that failure to adapt is what killed the dodo. And so if I don't adapt, I'm going to become irrelevant.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like the blockbuster syndrome, right?
Yeah. So I think AI, it's all going to boil down to how it's regulated, I think. So I'm really curious to see what the courts do as AI issues are put before them, how they draw lines between what is acceptable and what is not. But I also think it's going to provide a lot of opportunities for people. Yes, I think some legal tasks are going to go away. Some of the routine things, like some of the low-level doc review and low-level pleadings, drafting, and even discovery. I could see some of that going away. And that's going to be really sad because it's going to lead to a loss of jobs.
Yeah.
But I also think that it's going to free up time for lawyers to be more creative in their thinking and in their problem solving. And then for people who do lose jobs, I do think it's going to provide them with an opportunity to perhaps try a field that's going to bring them a lot more joy than a legal field would have, but they just wouldn't have done it before.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I like your thinking on that, definitely. Have you seen it, or how have you seen it affect your practice now?
I mean, it's crazy, even just writing in Word, like it's predicting what I want to say.
Yeah.
In emails. I've noticed that legal research has gotten a lot better and more nuanced. So it's taking me less time to find relevant cases when I'm brief writing. Yeah, it's wild. I can't believe we're here.
Right. And it's moving very quickly as well. It's
Moving very
moving
quickly.
very, very fast.
Yeah.
So you're no longer anti-AI then?
I am no longer anti-AI.
You're reformed. You're
I am
reformed.
reformed.
Yeah. Initially I was anti-AI. I really was, and then I had a conversation with my husband. And he said exactly the same thing as your brother. Like, don't be scared of it. He said, don't be scared of it. Use it as a tool. And those of us that can use AI as a tool are going to be the ones that are going to be able to sort of move forward and advance. So I'm changing. This is why I posed the question, because it's really interesting seeing other points of view as well.
Yeah, I saw a quote, I think my brother again sent it to me, and it was basically someone saying, I want AI to help me do my laundry and dishes so that I have time to write and create, So I think, we're all scared that it's going to lead to this huge change in how we work.
Right.
People said the same thing about the Industrial Revolution, right?
Exactly.
So it's more about how to make our personal lives more efficient,
right?
And those routine tasks that you really don't need a human to do, how we can turn that over to AI versus having AI create. Because I don't know how long it's going to take for AI to dream. I don't think they can dream. I think that's a uniquely human thing,
exactly.
And to be creative. And so I think we're safe.
I think we're good. I'm your host, Erica Moore-Burton. As the president and founder of Round Hill Legal Search, I've spent over 2 decades connecting with incredible attorneys day in and day out. I decided it was high time that we share some of their remarkable stories, lessons, insights, and inspiration with the world. Join us weekly as we have wonderful conversations with our guests, or simply a session talking about some career tips, advice for you as you light your own legal career path. Or legacy will be in terms of risk taking, paving the way for other people as people sort of look at you and see where you started and the trajectory of your career and everything. What do you hope your legacy will be in terms of risk taking?
I guess I hope people see me as someone who tried and failed, but fell gracefully. Because I think it's all about how you do it, right?
Right,
How you fail. If you beat yourself up and have a really bad attitude about it, I think you can really set yourself back. But if you choose to accept it and say, you know what, like that wasn't how I intended it to end up, but that's okay. Like I'm
right.
gonna pick myself up and figure out what's next. I think that's where the growth happens. And so I hope that as I continue to take risks in my career that I'll be able to do that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I really like that, and they always say that growth never comes from your comfort zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to grow if you're comfortable. So it is about taking risks personally, professionally, etc. Um, Before we jump into Erica's fun five, it may be fun four today. Any final thoughts that you'd like to share about the importance of risk taking in career and life in general?
I think we, I think we're all here in this world and that we occupy our own unique space. And I think that throughout life, there's going to be people who come into your life who are going to want to steal your space,
Mm-hmm.
either because they like your space more than theirs, or they want to make their own space bigger.
Right.
And so I think that sometimes it can be challenging and perhaps even uncomfortable to stay in that space, but
Mm-hmm.
you should. And ultimately, even when it feels the most risky, I think it can be really beneficial and beautiful to see what happens next. And so just claim your space, I
Claim
guess
your
is what.
space. Very well put. I love that. Thank you for that. Okay, so let's jump into Erica's fun five. I like to do this section. I like to talk about the best piece of advice your mother or any other influential woman has given you.
Mm.
What's the best piece of advice that you can share with our listeners that was given to you and so you can impart onto us?
Growing up, my mother always told me that the way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. And so I think she was telling me that when I was really stressed out in high school. I did
Mm-hmm.
2 years in one, so I
Oh,
could graduate early. So I had a year where I was doing two English classes and two science classes, and it was very overwhelming. And so sometimes I let my stress get the better of me. And she'd
right.
always tell me, take a deep breath, remember one thing at a time. And so when that happens to me today, I'll take a breath, I'll make a to-do list, I'll write it all out, and that always helps.
Got it. So small bite sizes, so small chunks at a time. Got it. What has been the most impactful book you have ever read?
Ooh, that is a really tough question because I read a lot.
You do? Okay. Fiction or
Um,
nonfiction?
both,
Both. Okay. So
both,
give us one for each then.
yeah. Hmm. So nonfiction, it would probably have to be Orthodoxy by G.K. Chesterton or Lament for a Son by Nicholas Wolterstorff.
Okay.
Um, Lament for a Son is about him grieving the loss of his son after he died unexpectedly.
Okay.
And I think it's a really beautiful portrayal of what it means to grieve. And I think as I have hard things that happen in my life, sometimes we want to like put a stiff upper lip, you're
Yeah.
British,
Yeah.
stiff upper lip.
Exactly.
That's what my mom told me too. But I think it's really beautiful because he kind of shows you how to grieve well
Hmm.
and how to use your grief to shape it and help you move forward in your life.
Oh, that's great. Lament for a Son. I'll put it in the show notes. But who's
Yeah.
the author?
Nicholas Folterstorff.
Okay.
He's a theologian and I think philosopher. I think he's like in his 90s now. He's up there.
Wow. Okay. And
Mhm.
what was the you mentioned another one.
Orthodoxy by G.K. Chesterton, a fellow Brit.
Tell us about that one.
That one is just about him kind of deconstructing Christianity. And I
Okay.
found it to be very fascinating because I grew up Christian and I really, really struggled in my faith because I think there's a lot of things that don't make sense about Christianity. And he doesn't shy away from that. And in the end, like he comes back, and I just thought the way he dissected the faith and then came back to it was really interesting. I read it in high school.
Great. Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. Let's see. What's the one goal you haven't accomplished yet and that you still plan on accomplishing before you expire?
I'd love to be an entrepreneur. I would love to start my own company. It doesn't have to be something that sells for $1 billion or turns into a full-time job, but I just wanted to start something so I can look at it and say like, wow,
I
I
built
created
that.
that. Yeah.
Great. Any idea what?
I think it'll probably be something in fashion.
Oh, I love
Yeah,
that. Okay.
I've started, I'll say in
Yeah.
air quotes, several fashion companies. I almost bought one last year, but it just hasn't been the right timing. So I'm waiting for that timing to be right, and hopefully one day I'll be able to do something in that
I
space.
love that. I love that because it's so very different. And there'll be a lot of risk taking in that as well. And I love that you're going to do that. That's
It's super
great.
hard to make money in fashion, but you know what? Why
Someone's
not do
doing
it
it. People are doing it though. That's the
now?
way that
Yeah.
I see it. Somebody's doing it. You gotta find that niche. It's funny because my daughter's interested in fashion and she's like, I want a line. And I'm like, people are doing it out there. So why not you? You know?
Exactly. Why not you?
Exactly.
You can
Wonderful.
have it too. You just got to go for it.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. Last question: hero or Shiro, and why?
I love Condoleezza Rice.
Okay, I love her too. Yes.
She is amazing. I love that she started out, she grew up in the segregated South
Mm-hmm.
and wanted to be a musician. And then, 40 years later, she's Secretary of State. So
Right.
I love reading. I've read a lot of her biographies and her autobiographies as well. And just watching her go from that little girl in the South to someone who's representing the most powerful nation in the world 40, 50 years later, it gives me hope and it really encourages me to just keep going. And because you just never know.
You
You
just
never know
never
where
know. You just
you're
never
going to end
know.
up.
I saw her live once, Condoleezza Rice, and she said something that really has impacted me like throughout my life. And she said, no matter what's going on with you, no matter what's going on in your life right now, think about this: that there are with all the problems or the problem of the day or whatever you're going through, think about this: in this world there are millions and millions of people that would want to switch places with you. It doesn't
Wow.
matter what's going on with you. And so in the darkest moments of my life, I've always held on to that quote. Like, we won't go into all of the issues or the challenges, but I've always remembered that quote when she said it was really an impactful one. Just knowing that doesn't matter what's going on. There's some with all your problems. There's somebody else that would want to switch places with you in this moment. So I love Condoleezza Rice.
Yes. And that's one of the things like that itself is exactly what I love about her. She's so humble.
Yes,
She's great. Awesome. I'm so
very much so.
jealous. I'm so
Say it
jealous
again.
about you.
Oh yeah, yeah. I had a front seat as well, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I
Wow.
love this woman. Yeah, it was one of those. I think it was a Tony Robbins conference, or it was one of those. It was just down in Long Beach as well, but it was like 15 years ago. And I just, that moment, she changed my life by just that quote, and I hold on to that to this very day.
Love it.
Wonderful. Okay, that brings us to an end. Thank you so much. I really, really love talking to you. This has been
For
a
having
great
me.
interview. Thank you for being willing to come on and share your experiences with us. And I know that there are some gems in there that a lot of our listeners will be able to draw from and move with in their own lives as well. So I thank you. I appreciate you taking the time. Okay.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in and listening. I'm your host, Erica Moore-Burton. If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure that you share and subscribe to get new episodes as they come out. If you're an attorney looking for new opportunities, head to www.roundhillsearch.com to get in contact with one of our recruiting associates. And don't forget to send your career questions to podcast@roundhillsearch.com. Until next time.